All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paranormal Portal Night Terrors. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I am joined by my big boy himself, Mr. Sheldon Thomas, who was just yawning moments ago. Are you tired?
Yeah, I don't know why, actually. Not that this is boring, but I don't know.
Good save. That's good, because you just started. It's a little too early to get boring already. It usually takes a good 10 minutes for that to happen.
These are one of my favorite nights. I save my energy for these shows. So.
Oh, very good. Well, good. Welcome to the show, buddy. How you doing? Good day?
Doing great. Good. Got some homework done, college work, and here I am.
That's it, ladies. You hear that? He's a college man. Just saying.
So far, so good.
All right. Well, welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome. It's our Sunday night terrors. As always, we're going to dive into about an hour of paranormal fun, and hopefully you'll feel wildly entertained by the time we're through. If you want to, you can call in. Throughout the course of the journey tonight, the call-in board is open, and you can dial in if you've got something paranormal of your very own to share. You can do that. You can share it with us by calling 720-923-0500. 720-923-0500. I was just reorganizing the screen as I was giving out the phone number, so I thought I was really impressed with that. So at any rate, we've got a lot more to go. And I guess all I can tell you is on the front end, I think that's it. So I hope you're ready, because it's time for bed. Boom. There you go, folks. This is it. We're underway now. All right. So as we start, we're going to probably start with that article. I got a great, remember at the tail end of the show, we have the trail cam terrors. And the one we're going to share with you tonight has been around for a while. It's a pretty good video, though. I think it's pretty strong. Really, it's probably one we've showcased before on the show. I'm sure we must have. But at any rate, it's one of my favorite Bigfoot videos of all time. And it's from Russia, but it shows this figure leaping through the trees that's really, I'll point out as we go, but it's really a compelling video. I think it's very well could be the real deal, and we'll showcase it in just a little bit here. So first and foremost, let's get into the paranormal fun that you've come to expect here on the portal. And we're going to go right to an article that is featured on factinate.com. And it's real life supernatural encounters. And this is a big article. It's huge. We've been going through it for several nights. We've been reading hours of this already, and we're only about halfway now. So there's still a bunch more to go. But I think this first story reminds me of something that I'm going to probably go into. We'll see what the meat of this story is. But it reminds me of an experience that Don and I had, which is really, really cool. And I'll get into that in just a couple minutes. But let's read this article. The first one on the board tonight is from factinate.com, Into the Rainbow, number 55. It says, I drive down the same road every day to get into town, and on the horizon are the Chiltern Hills. I grew up on and around them, so I know them well and the surrounding area. One day there was a rainbow as I drove down that road, and I went through it. Rather than seeing the familiar greens and chalk of the hills I was used to, I swear I saw a vast industrial complex. Oh, that's not what I expected at all. It was huge, with multiple dark buildings and chimneys belching out smoke, and it lasted as long as the rainbow was. Lasted as long as the rainbow was there, and could only be seen through it. There are no buildings like that for many miles around, or ever have been, as far as I'm aware. And that was by Virus Fuzzy 7567. Now, the event that I'm thinking of that happened to Don and I was after we went to just kind of a Bigfoot meet and greet with where we also met our good friend Cindy Goodbrake. And it was a good time. We had a lot of fun going to there. And we're on our way home, and we're kind of driving through these rainstorms, as it were. And they were just, more like cloud bursts than anything. But we were coming home, and sure enough, in the distance as we're driving, there's a rainstorm, and it's, belching out some pretty good rain. So we're like, okay. So we get into that, and we get through it. And on the other side, I look up on the road ahead of us, and I'm like, Don, there's a rainbow. He's like, oh, cool. Don's probably thinking, okay, great. I've seen those before. But I was like, it just ends up on the road up there. And he's like, yeah, it really does, doesn't it? So we're driving along, and Don and I get closer and closer. And this rainbow is still in that same spot. Now, the funny thing about rainbows is it's a prismatic effect of the water and the light. And it basically, that's why the legend is you got to find the end of the rainbow so you can get the leprechaun's gold, because you can never find the end of a rainbow. No matter where you move, the end of the rainbow moves. But swear to God, that rainbow stayed in place as we rounded this mountain and came around this road, and it still was there. And as we got closer, still is there. It's like, Don, we're going to drive through it. He's like, yeah. And the next thing I know, we drive through this rainbow, and it's literally like driving through colors. The lights changed really briefly because it wasn't a big rainbow. It wasn't huge, but it was like flash, orange, green, yellow, red, blue, whatever, all the way through. And not like brilliant flashes, just like the air changed a tint to the tint of the different colors of the rainbow as we went through it. I was like, wow. I said, Don, I didn't think that was supposed to be possible. And Don said, yeah, that's not supposed to be possible. So we actually went through a rainbow, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I don't know if there's any significance at all to that, other than the fact that, again, as I understand it, the rainbow is a prismatic effect, that you never actually get to the rainbow because depending on your position to the light and the moisture in the air, the rainbow will move and appear as far as, being some kind of, light triangle, the light source, the medium, which is the raindrops, and you observing. So it's a prismatic effect. But we actually went through the rainbow. It really was crazy. It's a very true story. And if you don't believe me, you can ask Don, but that really did happen. Don, it was one of Don's earliest ventures into doing things with me, and I think his whole life journey has been forever twisted and distorted because of the Paranormal Portal.
AKA because of you.
Maybe. I don't know if it was me or if it was just us together, what was going on that day, but that was really pretty intense. I've never seen that before either, so it's not like I was used to that either. It was like, hey, what's going on? But true story. I don't know. Does it mean anything? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe. I mean, nothing magical happened. I didn't see, like as in this story, the factories and belching smoke and stuff. I didn't see any other world. It was just like driving through colors quick, and then it was done. And that was the extent of the experience. But it was really pretty cool all the same. So that's my rainbow story for what it's worth. Every once in a while I hit a word that just, I should share this story. And so I do. So anyway, that's the rainbow story. Number 56, heavy breather. I was about 15 and trying to get to sleep, but I found that I was having an asthma attack. Late in the night, I started hearing a rhythmic breathing from the floor next to the bed. It wasn't scary. It was more comforting. And it wasn't me, because my breathing sounded way more messed up than that. It helped me to calm down and get to sleep. Even though I was still sick, I was able to get my hands on an inhaler in the morning, and at the time I thought it was a friendly ghost, and I later rationalized that maybe I was hearing a family member through the heating ducts. And what I realized years later, when I had a dog, was that it had sounded exactly like a big dog sleeping next to the bed. Now, I'm 50-50 on whether a ghost dog came to visit me or my own dog time traveled back about 10 years before she was born to comfort me. That was by Green-Eyed Wench. Not witch, wench.
Wench. Okay.
Such a wench. All right. Well, yeah, that's good. I'm glad you had that experience. That's awesome. Number 57, the metamorphosis. Me and my girlfriend have been living together in an apartment for 2.5 years. Everything has been normal until recently when things took a bizarre turn. For instance, for the last 3 weeks or so, my girlfriend has been putting sugar in her morning coffee, while throughout our entire relationship, she's always been very much against it. It may seem like a small detail, but she's always been complaining about how I don't know what real coffee is, since I put in quite a lot of sugar. On the first day that I saw her drinking coffee with sugar, I asked her why she would do that, and she looked at me, weirded out, and said something like, "What are you talking about? I've always put sugar in my coffee." I felt a bit confused for a moment, but then we started talking about some other things, so I didn't think any more about it. Until, that is, the morning after, when she did the exact same thing and had once again the same reaction. Fast forward a few days, and another odd thing happened. We were doing the deed, and she suddenly suggested a position that we had already tried once, but it had gone wrong, and it hurt her a lot, so we had simply decided not to try it anymore. Naturally, I was very surprised with her suggestion and reminded her about the time when it went wrong, and she just completely dismissed it, saying that I probably mixed her up with some ex-girlfriend or that I was just tripping. Today, the weirdest thing happened, which is the reason I'm writing this. In the afternoon, I was working at home. I'm employed as a PhD student at the computer science department of a university, and my girlfriend asked me what's up with the guy who I've never even heard of before. And I asked her who she's referring to, and she said, "Well, it's that colleague of yours who you always talk about, the one from the company where you are employed at." I froze. I asked her to repeat herself, and she said the exact same thing all over again. Then I told her that I don't work at any company, nor have I ever worked at any company since I started a PhD straight after my master's degree. At this point, she completely froze as well, and we were just staring at each other, completely confused and shocked for a few moments. She then asked me what the heck is going on, and I reminded her about the coffee thing and about the position, and that I don't know what is going on either. And at this point, she started crying too and asked what's wrong with us. Neither she nor me nor anyone in both families have ever had any mental problems in the past, and we don't know what to do about this. That sounds like,
Wow.
like, again, another dimensional shift. Somebody shifted. Weird, huh?
Yeah, it's like her memories and her behaviors like just changed on a dime.
Right. Yeah, that's creepy.
So odd.
That is really weird. And the weird thing is that it's not like it's some diabolical thing. They don't know that anything is wrong either. So it's like these oddities come up, and it's like, wait a minute, you just chewed my ass for 3 weeks about that other thing, and and now you're for it. It's like, what's going on? And so both of these people are being taken by surprise by this change of things that they didn't anticipate, nor were they prepared for, and are left to just wonder what's going on. And it took many events, but it seems like they both got to the same page finally. Like, what is going on here? This isn't the world I know. I don't know. That's really creepy. Oof.
I mean, I almost wonder if maybe that's what happens when, for some missing cases, where literally they just walk a few feet and boom, they're gone. Like, just no trace at all for those stories like that.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're transitioning and they're gone in our, phase dimension, whatever you want to call it, but they just shifted over. Like, nothing's different to them other than maybe a few key details. But
yeah, a few oddities. Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe it's an exchange of sorts. Like, sometimes you shift with another version of yourself, and then sometimes you shift and the other place doesn't have a version of yourself to shift back. So then you're just gone. Right?
It's like a mental, spiritual shift type thing.
Right. Well, it's also physical, apparently. We talked about the story of the two guys the guy that got in the car crash, and he should have either died or been very hurt, but only had a few scratches. But he thought his girlfriend / wife had a tube TV, and she always had a flat screen. And then she ended up having a problem where she almost died when they were on vacation with a tubal pregnancy, and then she made it, but she remembers a fire extinguisher being installed in their house And he's like, we never have had one. And she's like, yeah, we fought about it for like 2 weeks before this. It's right in the closet. Open the closet. And he did. And there's no fire extinguisher in there. And there's no mounting for a fire extinguisher having ever been in there. And no holes in the old wall. You know, it was old unfinished wall. So, I mean, it's just really strange. But that's coming up a lot in these.
Yeah, even trying to think of it rationally. I mean, you know, it's one thing to have a few things here and there that be just misremembered differently, but these are huge things, like never putting sugar in your coffee and then all of a sudden always putting sugar in your coffee, and misremembering that someone worked for a company when they've never worked at a certain company or whatever.
Right.
Like, these are big changes. These aren't just small details.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, they're pretty significant shifts in the details, but it's, I don't know. It's got to feel really horrible though, because, and obviously you're not with the person you think you're with, but you're with a version of them. And they're not with the person they think they're with, but they're with a version of you, you know. And it's like, is that the same thing? Is this somehow wrong because of that, or what? I don't know. I mean, it's very, very odd. I don't know what to make of it, but it really does seem like some kind of dimensional shifter or hopscotching going on or something, just where things change on a dime, boom, and suddenly, you know, you're not with who you think you're with. You're with a very close version of that, but not quite the same. And then, wouldn't you feel like, but where's my real wife? Or where's my, you know, this person's great and all, but this isn't her. This isn't the one. And and not that you could do anything about it anyway, because it's, you know, I mean, we just don't know how to shift dimensions.
No.
But at any rate, very strange. I don't know what to make of this stuff, folks. It's just really, really wild. Paradox Fossil says Twilight Zone. Yeah, definitely. It really is like a Twilight Zone thing. Just like, boom. All the rules changed, folks. I don't know. I think it's really wild. What if we are coming to a fixed point in time and that we exist in a split timeline and the timelines are pulled together the closer they get to the fixed point? Yeah, I think, Buzz, you know, I think you mentioned that on another show too. Or is that a split timeline? Just saying. That sounds familiar, but yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. It's hard to know. Maybe it's like Jet Li in The One, where he had to kill versions of himself to get more powerful. maybe we're becoming more powerful as these other versions of ourselves are wiped out, and so we get this super soul. You know, I don't know.
That's actually an underrated movie. If you haven't checked it out, actually watch it. It's underrated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought it was really compelling. Number 58, All in the Family. I hated that show.
What show?
All in the Family. It was an old 70s sitcom. And the reason I hated it was because my dad loved Archie Bunker. And he thought that Archie Bunker is about the most hilarious guy in the world. And in many ways, he was Archie Bunker. And it's like, oh, no. God, I grew up in All in the Family. Anyway.
Which one's worse, All in the Family or Gilligan's Island?
Definitely All in the Family, because Gilligan was just an idiot. But well, never mind. They're both idiots. But I don't know. It's just a different kind of idiocy. Like, just Archie Bunker had no like, he had no social skills at all, and he didn't even have logic on his side. It was just like nothing on his side. Just like, I'm just a dick. That's just me.
That's just it.
So, and don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen, I love my dad. Don't misconstrue that in any way. But he was one of those hardtail guys, you know, just old school hardtail guy. But God, he used to remind me exactly like Archie Bunker. Oh, anyway, I'm getting all editorial here. Anyway, All in the Family. Back when we were living in South Africa, we had moved into an apartment which we had bought. The moving in was actually quite eventful because Mother and her son were renting the place before, and though they had been notified, they decided to stay past the date that was given to them. Long story short, we moved in and started settling. After putting us to bed, my mother decided to stay up and watch TV. As she was watching whatever show was on at the time, she glanced at our only plant in the house, which is a 15 meter tall plant, and saw a man roughly the same height as the plant standing under one of its leaves. She was is this 15 or 1.5 meter? Okay. All right. I didn't see the decimal point there. It's 1.5 meter tall plant. So that's what, maybe 4 feet tall plant. She saw a man roughly the same height as the plant standing under one of its leaves. She was terrified and got up and flicked the lights on, but he wasn't there. Calling it a night, she goes to bed. The next day, or maybe 2 days later, I'm not sure on that detail, at breakfast, my brother, who was around 16 at the time, picked up a piece of bread, turned around to the plant and said, "Hey, Michael, want some?" laughing. My mother asks him who Michael is, and he says Michael's the guy standing under the plant at night. Mind you, my mother didn't say anything to anyone about Michael to not freak us out. My brother's best friend was also over that morning, and he had basically unofficially adopted him. We had basically unofficially adopted him, and my mother asks him if he sees Michael too, and he says, yeah. Then she asked to describe Michael, and he gives a perfect description down to the whites of his eyes. Michael apparently was a black young man around 1.4 to 1.5 meter in height, wearing a plain black trousers, a white button-down shirt, and a green vest. His skin tone was quite dark, with a faintish sheen to it. His eyes were also dark in color, and the whites of his eyes, the whites were tinted a bit yellow, and he had a permanent smiling expression on his face that didn't reach his eyes. Almost malicious, I guess. Michael always stayed put where he was, never moving, but following you with his eyes. And one morning my mom woke up my dad coming home. He brought his indoor circulating water thing, and he moved the plant exactly opposite where it was and put that water thing there instead. My mother didn't say anything, and that night Michael also moved the plant. Of course, after hearing this, I asked the next logical question that any sane person would ask, and why didn't she just throw away the plant? She said it never occurred to her. So yeah, that's the story of Michael, the benign smiling spirit that was part of our family for some time. So there's a lot of beliefs in the idea that there are, well, I don't know if they're considered a, what's the word I'm looking for? If they're considered like a
Tree spirit?
Well, it's kind of where I'm going, but if there's a spirit that tends to plants, that, like, you know, looks over them, looks after them as part of like a nature spirit, you know, that is responsible for certain plants or in an area maybe. And some believe that there are actually spirits in plants, that they actually have a very real spirit.
An elemental?
Well,
Rachel asks.
It's more of I wouldn't say it's elemental, because when I think of elemental, I think of like nature spirits. And I mean, like, I think of like fire, water, air, and perhaps it is an elemental, but it's more of just a feral kind of, like a sylph or a dryad or something like that, along those lines. Not so much elemental as almost fae, but not traditional fae in the winged creature thing, but along those lines.
A dryad?
Yeah, that's what I said. A sylph or dryad.
Oh.
Yeah. SYLPH, sylph, dryad, and there's other names as well. So I don't know. Was Michael one of those? Why was it attached to this one plant? I don't know. But it's very interesting. 59, crying over you. Crying over you. Sorry, it's an old song. I think it was Frankie Valli. Anyway, when I was 22, I visited my grandmother in her retirement home at Christmas. She was well, nothing out of the ordinary. A few days later, I traveled to my then boyfriend across the country, and 2 days after New Year's, I woke up at 2 a.m. crying, and I just couldn't stop. I was really sad and overly emotional, but the tears just kept streaming down my face. Nothing like that ever happened, and I was kind of confused, as was my boyfriend. I fell back asleep a few hours later. 3 days later, I was informed that my grandmother had passed that night at about 2 a.m. due to the divorce of my parents. Communication was difficult, and we were only informed after the funeral. Oh, that's horrible. You know, I don't care how difficult communication is. You got to make sure to, communicate those kind of things. Yeah. I don't believe in anything supernatural, but it's hard to wrap my head around, especially since Nothing like this ever happened again. Sorry, you gotta forgive me. I was out in the cold all day. And I literally only got home quickly before the show and got set up for the show tonight. Oh, it was one of those days.
Busy guy.
Busy guy. Yeah, it wasn't even like I was having a blast outside. I was just outside getting something fixed, and it took all day. But all right. The next one is number 60. It's a short one. By the way, that was by smiling_gecko. I haven't been reading the names, and I should. Yep. Number 60, a juicy bit. I was going through the airport metal detector when I found an orange juice in my bag. I had to drink it because it wouldn't pass through the security, being over the liquid limits allowed to enter plane. Having finished it, I passed through the security. 1 hour later, as I was waiting to enter the plane, I found the same orange juice in my bag as though it had never been touched. So, the dimensional orange juice.
Dimensional.
It refuses to go down. That's weird. And that was by Mitnalev. Okay. Number 61, green means stop. Not usually. I have many. Go ahead.
That actually reminded me of, do you remember, I don't remember what it was. It was, Nina made, that one dessert, and it tasted fine at her house. And then when it came over to our place, when we brought it over, it was like salty.
I don't remember. I'm sure what you're saying is true. It sounds familiar, but I don't remember the details of it.
It was something you experienced and told me about, so I don't know the details.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it does sound familiar. It sounds like something I probably had talked about with you at some point, but we had thousands of weird discussions, so it's when you nail it down to just one, it's like, maybe.
True. That's fair.
But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me much. I don't remember the details. I wish I did, because it'd be fun to talk about. But yeah. I vaguely remember that I brought something home that was delicious at my mom's. But once I got home, it was just really salty. And it was like, oh, I couldn't eat it.
You said it tasted as if the salt was replaced with, or the sugar was replaced with salt.
Yeah. It rings a bell, but I can't remember any details. So, but
okay.
Yeah, because mom's always been a great cook. Obviously, she helped form the man that I am.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, that's never been an issue as far as what Mom made. She made me a fat and happy kid, but. I don't know. She wouldn't have been one to confuse salt and sugar. That's for sure.
No way.
Yeah.
No, for sure not.
Number 61, green means stop. I have many stories, but this is the first that popped into my head. I was driving home from work after picking up my baby late at night. Not many cars around out in the country roads, but one stoplight out there was red for me, so I stopped. It turned green, but that's when I heard it. All of a sudden, voice or thought or whatever in my head started saying, "Don't go yet." Nothing is coming, and I'm still sitting at the green light. Right as I let off the brake, a semi comes flying through this red light. I was in shock. That was by Kitty in the Water. Premonitions are powerful. I've had, and I've shared it before, but it's one that I really still blows my mind, because I'm not one to get real clear visions about things like that normally. I mean, I can usually feel things coming, but it's not until after it happens, like, oh, that's what that was. But there's one time I was working in the correctional facility, and I was on the patrol, where it was basically, if anything went wrong anywhere, I was one of the people that had to go and deal with it. And I was driving around, and at this time there was some construction work going on in one of the administrative offices, but there was a wood shop on the grounds as well. And throughout the days, they were taking this like a half-ton, I guess it was probably a full-ton cargo truck, and just flying up and down with the pieces and parts to assemble this desk units that they were working on and building. And I was driving along, and suddenly I was cruising along probably about 30, which wasn't excessively fast on those roads, but suddenly I had a vision of that white truck careening between two of the brick buildings on the campus in a real blind spot and just flying out and going. And I was like, oh my God, I got to slow down. So I slowed down. And if I had remained going that speed, I would have been absolutely T-boned by this 1-ton truck flying out from between those buildings. It happened exactly as I saw it. Just moments difference. I had the feeling, hit the brakes, slowed down, and as I got closer, boom, it just came through. And he was flying. That guy was flying. He would have hurt me bad. I can't say it would have killed me, but it would have been a mess. It would have been a huge mess. And it was just one of those things. It was a premonition. Just came at the exact right time, a warning from somewhere saying, do this. And I listened. And sure enough, it saved me a lot of pain, I'm sure. So I do believe in those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, I think that's great. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Number 62, rather, singing along. My college roommate worked at the radio station and brought home albums right when they were released so that he could decide if he wanted to play anything from them and just for general enjoyment. One night we brought the album he brought home was Sarah McLaughlin's Fumbling Towards Ecstasy. And we listened together, enjoying it well enough. When the 5th track, Mary, came on, I sang along as I knew it by heart. My roommate looked at me like I was crazy, and I said, oh, I don't know where it comes from, but I've known this song my whole life. The song was written for that album, just like all the other tracks, and it wasn't a cover and had never been released before. It isn't particularly important to me. It's just that I remembered it, the same way that I could remember the Carole King and Sheena Easton songs my parents played in the 70s. It's just something I've always known. I'm a skeptic, and this is clearly impossible. I've spent real time trying to figure out some of the references for this track, having been written well before the rest of the album, and maybe covered or performed elsewhere, but I've found no such evidence. It's really unimportant, but just so inexplicable. And that was by sock_purple. Now, that really is interesting because, and I don't pretend to be a musician, ladies and gentlemen. I've written music. I love music, but I don't know. For me, I don't think of myself as a musician, but I've written songs. And I've also have spontaneously written songs, many songs. Just picked it up and played it, sang it all the way through as if it was already written somewhere. And I always figured maybe it was some kind of channeling. And so if that's the case, does all music exist somewhere in the great divine mind? And maybe musicians pull pieces and parts and they create the songs that we hear, and maybe that's why we resonate with some of them, is because for whatever reason that vibration is just right for us, or like country music I don't really care for, but some people are just crazy about it, and maybe it's because it's from a different part of the divine mind or the divine construct or whatever you want to call it. But maybe all these things are written already. All the books are written. All of the words have already been transcribed somewhere, and people talk about the Akashic records and stuff. So maybe the music is out there in the Akashic records too. And maybe that's what happened, is this person had long been a part of this very song from some divine standpoint. I don't know. Again, it's just talking about ideas. There's no way to know, but I find it very interesting. What did my chat was?
Since time is an illusion and it's only how we comprehend it, and in the spiritual plane, who knows how, things even play out. But who's to say you can't pick up on things like that have happened or will happen? Kind of like premonitions, and even in the music light, too.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sheldon Thomas. Coming from a very profound place. That was very beautiful. You're right. It's a beautiful thought. Well done.
Oh.
No, you thought I was being cheeky. I was serious. I was really impressed with that. Good answer. Good answer. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
God, you'd swear I never praised you before. Like, you have the shocked look.
No.
Like, really?
Well, it's just that I just didn't think much of it. I just kind of said it. I don't know. I appreciate that. That means a lot.
No, it's very true. It's very profound. I think you're right. I think there's something to what you just said. Mm-hmm. Honky tonk nut, Ruger Ridge. Who would have guessed that, Ruger? No, I do respect the music. Don't get me wrong. I really don't dislike or hate it. It's just, it doesn't move me for the most cases. There's some country songs I've absolutely loved, but they're more the exception than the rule. However, there's more alternative progressive music I've absolutely loved, and with only a few exceptions that I don't. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just, we're all different, right? We're all on different vibrations and different frequencies to a degree. I mean, we're here in this collective vibration that we call our life experience, but we still are unique in our own ways. So, yes, I agree.
MCAT says, music comes from everywhere, and we are the vessels it shows up in.
Good point. I like that,
Yeah.
MCAT. Well said.
Yeah.
Wow. MCAT gets one, too.
We're getting everyone the applause today.
Everybody's getting the applause today. Good participation, ladies and gentlemen. And that's true. I think you guys are all right. I don't disagree with any of this. It's just, this is, I think that everything probably does exist. There aren't really any unique ideas. It's just that we all experience ideas as epiphanies, these thoughts, these solutions to problems, these next steps. They come to us in the form of ideas, but maybe it's us awakening to a broader exposure to the divine energy of the universe. And I use the word divine a lot, and I'm sorry if that rubs anyone the wrong way. I don't do it to frame it in a religious sense or anything. I just frame it in the only words that make sense to me. So I hope that doesn't put anybody off, because I'm not trying to preach or sound like I'm coming from a pious place. I'm really not. If you knew me, you'd know. But, I just think that there's, if indeed we spring from this divine mind, again, divine, that we understand as could be perfection, then what's left to create? Well, for us, it's the realization of that within ourselves. So, I don't know. It's like we're in a big incubator, in a sense, and we're just becoming more and more aware of our experience. So I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but it's just what came up.
Rachel said something also profound as well. Maybe a thread of the cosmic tapestry unfurls and touches a person at the right time, and from where and when and from where, and it becomes a part of us.
Right. Like agreed. Yeah. I would give everybody applauses, but I can't. Rachel, you'd get applauses all the time anyway. So, but no, I think you guys are all right. Absolutely. I think that there's merit in everything, and I think we're all saying the same thing. We're just saying it in our own words, and so
yeah.
Yep, it's all absolutely right. To me, music is nature's tool to teach us the flow of life. I agree, Buzzard. I think so.
Yeah.
Very true. Yep, there's a cosmic tapestry. Paradox says, yes, there is. And we're all woven into it, the wheel of time, as it were, in the Robert Jordan series. Really great books. There's going to be a movie coming out about that, or a series on Showtime or Netflix about the Wheel of Time. Oof, it gave me chills to see it. You've never read those, have you, Sheldon?
No.
Yeah, they're phenomenal books. They really are. Robert Jordan could explain a blade of grass in about 3 chapters. He was just so
you told me
in-depth.
about him and his writing style. I remember that.
It would take him three chapters to explain a blade of grass, but God, you would know that blade of grass up and down, sideways, and back and forward. Very Tolkien-esque in that sense, but yeah, very cool. Not that that's the point of the show, but I just saw that. I was like, oh my God, they're gonna make. Now the risk of that, of course, is being someone that loves the books, seeing what they do with it could just be a tragedy,
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Kind of like every Dune fan when it was at the 80s that the movie Dune was released, where Sting was in it and stuff, and everybody's like, what?
Was that based on a book?
Yeah, Dune is really, I never did read the book, but a very wildly popular book. Yep. Let's let's see what the hell happened. Oh, okay. Wait, was this the one? Feeling it in the bones. This is the one. Number 63, feeling it in the bones. I had graduated high school and moved back to where I grew up as a young child. I moved in with my grandmother. I had been visiting a chiropractor where I had lived previously due to injuries. Since coming here, I've been telling my grandma that I needed to find a chiropractor in that area as my back was giving me issues. Too much powerlifting without proper instruction and wrestling had done a number on it. And then the first weekend that I was there, we went to the grocery store to get some food, and in one aisle, a lady started talking to me like we already knew each other. I wondered for a little bit if it wasn't somebody from the church that had attended as a child. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. She told me, never go to the chiropractor. When I asked her about it, she told me that their adjustments can go wrong, and there was a young man that she knew who died after having a spinal adjustment. Well, this freaked me out a little bit because I had a spinal adjustment that actually allowed me to continue to play. But this lady continued to tell me about how people had lost their lives after chiropractic adjustments. There was no lead up to this conversation other than her saying that I looked athletic and might consider it. The second that the conversation ended, my grandma walked back up to me and asked what I was doing. I told her I'd just been talking to the lady right there. I also mentioned how funny it was that she walked up to me talking about chiropractors after I had just told her an hour ago that I needed to find one. My grandmother asked what lady I was talking about because she never saw me talking to one as I was pursuing the items on that aisle. Or perusing the items on that aisle. I turned to point her out because she was, but she wasn't there. I don't know if the conversation with my grandmother had lasted longer than I thought, or there was another explanation. SD for BDA? I don't know what that means. Okay. Well, I guess you got to watch out for those chiropractors. I've never heard of anybody having adverse reactions to chiropractic, but perhaps it's true.
I mean, the only case where I can think that might be possible is if you had like a spinal surgery and then you go to a chiropractor and it's not healed and they don't know about that, and maybe.
It could be. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, certainly anytime you're adjusting the spine and dealing with the spinal stuff, there's danger to it.
Yeah.
Especially if there are, I would say probably more likely very, very subtle fractures that might get ruptured during an adjustment, things like that. Like you hurt your back and, oh, come here, I'll give you an adjustment. It's like, oh, and it goes sideways. But who knows? All right, let me see what time we have. We've been just talking and having a good old time. Number 6.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, oh, boy. Number 64, Elvis hadn't left the building. When I was in middle school, my grandparents were in charge of the local theater group and were doing this musical show where people dressed up as old country stars and sang some songs. My grandmother was the director and my grandpa was in charge of technical stuff like lights and sound. Well, this particular showing was on Elvis Presley's birthday, and they had a little bit at the end where they sang happy birthday in all their costumes. Well, the show ends and they're doing all the curtain call, and I'm sitting in the back with my grandpa, and he's controlling the lights and sound, and all of a sudden Happy Birthday by the Beatles starts playing over the speakers. My grandfather looks confused and starts messing around with sound machines and pressing buttons and dials. My grandma runs back and yells at him as that wasn't the song she was supposed to play. He then looks up and goes, "It's not me." My grandma says, "What do you mean it's not you? Switch to the right song." He looks so confused. My grandpa then says, "We don't even have this song on CD for this to play. This isn't coming from our music." My grandma just turns around and leaves. The whole song plays and ends when the curtain closes. No one in the crowd really noticed, and it seemed normal, but still freaks me out. No clue where this music was coming from, and we inspected the CD that all the music for the play was on, and sure enough, that song was not on it. I still think the ghost of Elvis was there that night. Well, thank you very much. I think it's possible. I don't know. Or at least somebody that was an Elvis fan was there, or maybe they weren't an Elvis fan. Maybe they were a Beatles fan. And that was why. Yeah, could be. Number 65, getting warm. Me too. I'm finally warming up. Man, I was cold today. Oof. I mean, I was like the kind of cold where you like your bones feel cold. And I got in the car to come back and I blasted the heater all the way home. And even though my eyes were like drying out as I'm driving, I was still shivering when I got home. I was so cold. I did not dress appropriately for the weather. My day took a turn sideways and I ended up in a different circumstance than the one I was expecting, but I made it.
You get 4.
I know, that's what I get for. You remember that, really?
Of course I do.
The inside joke there, ladies and gentlemen, is that Sheldon, when he was about 3 years old, thought that that's what you say. Instead of, well, that's what you get, he thought it was, well, that's what you get for. So anytime he was upset with something, he would just, and then something else happened, he'd be like, oh, well, that's what you get for. That's so I'm surprised you remember that, actually. Wow.
Actually, a mom reminded me of it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, she's the spoiler. All right. Yes. That's what you get for. Jesus. That's funny. That brought back a whole flood of memories. All right. Number 65, getting warm. I stayed in a luxurious resort on a small island with 3 of my friends when we were in high school. My friend's dad was the manager. This was a tiny island. You could walk around in less than a day, and there were only a few suites. Very exclusive, and it was far from the nearest town. At night, it would get really dark and peaceful. The staff there always talked about how they have strange or ghostly encounters throughout the years. Full disclosure, this island was used as a camping/hiding place for soldiers back in the day, and it still has a lighthouse that they used, and that's over 100 years old, hundreds of years old. Anyway, our room had 2 king-size beds. In the middle of the night, while everyone else was asleep, I woke up and suddenly felt extremely hot. I was sweating like crazy, even though the AC was on full blast, and it was blowing straight at me. I felt something weird, like a presence next to my side of the bed. I'd never felt so scared in my entire life. I was shaking and sweating profusely, but what was really crazy was that only one side of my body was hot. The other by the edge of the bed, and the other was cold. I hid under the blanket, closed my eyes as hard as I could because I was afraid that if I opened them, I would see something. I felt the energy of that presence get closer to me, like we were face to face. I kept inching towards my friend who was sleeping next to me, and after a while, it suddenly disappeared, and I wasn't hot anymore. The next morning, I didn't mention it to anyone until they talked about how it was so cold in the bedroom that they were freezing the whole night. Then I told them what I felt that night. My friend, who slept beside me, got really quiet. She told me not to freak out, but she woke up last night too, and she saw a girl standing next to my side of the bed and just staring right at me. I've never not believed in ghosts, but I also don't necessarily believe in them. But I just can't explain that night. It was the first time I had experienced a feeling I just couldn't explain or shake off, and it still bothers me to this day. Yeesh, that's one feisty, fiery spirit, apparently. Right, Sheldon?
Very fiery. I'll admit I missed the first half of that because the chat was talking about getting my baby photos out now. I got very distracted.
You were a cute baby. There's no question about it. You're adorable. You're adorable, little guy. I got one of you by the ladder when you're hanging out in your diaper. It's just really cute. You know the one I'm talking about, right?
I do. I do. I definitely do.
Yeah, it was adorable. You should see that little rascal.
That's something. Yeah. That's all I have to say.
All right. Well, we don't have to get any more into it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for tonight's version of the Trail Cam Terrors. And this one is coming courtesy of the Sasquatch Chronicles blog, which is, I was just getting the show launching and I was like, what am I going to do for this Trail Cam Terrors? And then I went to Twitter to post and below me was a post from Sasquatch Chronicles. And I'm like, oh, thank you, Wes. Thanks, Wes. So Wes is providing tonight's, whether he knew it or not, he is now. He's providing tonight's Trail Cam Terrors. So let's get right to it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's Trail Cam Terrors. Let's see if I can find it here. Here it is. Yep. This is a great video. Now, it's just a post on the Sasquatch Chronicles blog, but this is a video that's been around a long time, and it's really an incredible video. Let me get it, just trying to get it finished queued up here. I'm going to have to do this kind of quickly, I think, because I don't want to screw it up. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, here we go. Now, this is the original video from out of Russia. And I don't know, many of you that are into Sasquatch will already have seen this before, but I think that this figure really does represent what could very well be a Sasquatch or the version of them in Russia. And you be the judge. Now, we're gonna watch through it once, and then I'll go to the parts that I think really demonstrate why this doesn't look like a human being. And we're going to do that now. So without further ado, tonight's Trail Cam Terrors, courtesy of the Sasquatch Chronicles blog. This is Russian Yeti video. Let's check it out.
Он, короче, опять на нас попер, наверное. Сейчас заснимем, если что, на YouTube выложим.
Вон, смотри,
Тихо. Блин, он движется сюда.
Я боюсь. Вон, смотри.
Тихо.
Он ветками шевелит, по-моему.
Я ничего не... О, вон, передвигается. Чучело.
Смотри, ветки шатаются. Смотри.
О, побежал!
Пошли.
Я заснял его!
Чтоб не испугать его, пошли.
Я заснял!
Смотри.
Ё-моё!
Будет килограмм 200 весит.
Угу. Видел, как он своими лапами машет?
Смотри,
вон.
So that's the video in pretty much the entirety. I mean, there isn't much left, but I wanted to cue in on some of the most poignant parts of this, and I'm going to do it frame by frame here. But what I wanted to point out is when it's running across this clearing, you can see that it's almost in a gorilla pose right there. I'm going backwards, but it's kind of on its arms right there, and its legs are squatted. But I'm going to go back a little more, and you can see this, but it almost moves in a very gorilla-like fashion, I'm sure it's just staying low. But consider the arm length in order to squat at like this and be down on your knuckles as well. So he is bent over right here. Here's the hip. This is one leg. The other leg is back here. But the arm is down at that point, what looks to be on the ground. So that would suggest a longer reach than what we have anatomically as human beings. We're going to continue and watch this blow through the trees. You can see it kind of leaps up from that, and it lunges upwards and over to lunge through that gap. So it goes low, lunges quick through that gap, and it's behind that other tree. Now there's another part where it finally gets behind this tree. I'm going frame by frame ahead again. And I want you to pay attention again to the size of the arms. It does this leaping motion where the arms are almost like in a T pose out to the side, but its legs are kind of tucked up underneath it. And I'm getting to that right now. I'm just waiting for it to break back out into the open after it goes by this tree. I'm waiting for YouTube to catch up with me. As I do this, you can hear it clicking away. Yeah, it's going to be real doggy here. Sorry. I've got about 50 million tabs open, but here it comes. Now it's breaking into the scene again. You can see that emerging from the edge of the tree. I think. Oh no, I guess it's back here. It's finally back here breaking through this area. And that you basically only see a head, so you don't see a lot going on right there. All right, come on. I'm just moving forward, but I want to get to the point where it looks as though it's coming back out into the scene. This might be it. Let's see. There it is. So it's breaking back out to the scene. You can see it's kind of going over there. It looks like it has to jump over a log. It's actually coming down from a jump right now. It hits the ground. Watch when it leaps up again after it hits the ground here. This is what I think is pretty extraordinary because the arm length is already... So most of the body is here with... You can just see a shadow starting to emerge over here. And I think that's one of its arms coming out that's going to go... Okay, so now it's leaping up again. And look at how the arms go way out to the sides. I think this is spectacular. I'm not quite getting. There it goes. So here comes the legs catching up with it. Like it just tucked its legs under it to leap over something. But there's still an arm visible over here. As the body, the main back is over here, mostly on this side of the tree. There's still an arm sticking back here. And I don't think that that is normal. There, see that arm just now disappeared back behind the tree. Here it is right there. Here's the other shoulder. So this would be the left shoulder. The other arm is back behind this foliage. But its hand is still way back here. And that's a hell of a stretch. Back, see it disappearing? If I go back and forward there. That is very, very long reach. And then we'll just continue and see what it does on the next leap if it throws its arms out again. I don't remember. But I know that one stretch was just incredible.
The one thing I wish I knew is the scale of it in those trees back there to know how tall it would have to be.
You know, I don't know. I would say that it's probably, guesstimating, looking at the distance that they're showing us here, the size of those mature conifer trees. I would say that it's in the 8 foot plus range. It's hard to know though. I mean, I could be grossly exaggerating that too, but I think this is an incredible video, and now it's pretty much out of frame now. There's just a little bit. Let's go back and watch it again from the start. But cue in on those points. You can see that, I don't know, that doesn't seem like human.
Он, короче, опять на нас попер, наверное. Сейчас заснимем, если что, на YouTube выложим.
Вон, смотри,
Тихо.
что.
Блин,
Нам
он
лопаты
движется
дадут.
сюда.
Я боюсь. Вон, смотри.
Тихо.
Он ветками шевелит, по-моему.
Я ничего не вижу. О, вон, передвигается. Чучело.
Смотри, ветки шатаются. Смотри,
О, побежал!
пошли.
Я заснял его!
Чтоб не испугать его, пошли.
Я заснял!
Смотри.
Ё-моё!
Испуги-то килограмм 200 весит.
So I don't speak Russian. I don't know exactly what they're saying. I think I have seen this transcribed by some Russian speaker before, but I don't remember the exact words. But it's like, oh my God, have you seen this? Blah, blah, blah. You know, it's just normal, what you would expect. Now, I have heard people critique this like, oh, they don't sound scared enough. Well, I don't know. Maybe they've seen this a few times. Maybe this wasn't their first rodeo. Like the Paul Freeman footage, which I think is second only to the Patty footage. But the Paul Freeman footage, people say, oh, he's obviously not scared enough. Now, Paul Freeman had been researching these things for a long time before he ever caught them on film, had seen them before. So it wasn't his first rodeo. He was like, oh, there's a print. Oh, look at it. There he is there. There he is there. I didn't know Paul Freeman, obviously, but I suspect he's just one of those old school guys. Doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve, that stoic, old fashioned kind of guy. But I think those key points are really strong to suggest that this is not human-like proportions. I have seen a breakdown of this by Thinker Thunker too, and he did a good job breaking this one down. But it really doesn't seem like we're dealing with just a person in a costume, to me.
Plus, as far as the fear point goes, it's a whole lot different when you're seeing something just running casually from left to right, not even caring or noticing you, whatever the case may be, probably not caring about you, versus something that's trying to scare you away and intimidate you. There's going to be a different amount of fear there anyway.
Right.
So, saying they're not scared enough, if you're just seeing it, it's not doing anything towards you, of course.
Right.
There's no threat as far as what you're seeing.
Right. I agree with that. Unfortunately, this was kind of filmed on a potato, so you get what you get, but there is you can still glean enough detail to get an idea of what we're looking at here. It's obviously not 4K. It's probably like, 16K or whatever. Or
480p.
480p, yeah, if that. It was obviously a quite old camera style, but it's still, when you look at those pieces and you really look at them objectively, this is a big creature with a hell of a reach. I don't know. But again...
Yeah, those arms are long.
Yeah. I mean, could you see that in this? Have you seen this before, Sheldon?
No, this is my first time.
Okay. Well, let me close out this segment here. But that's the trail cam terrors for tonight, folks. So there you have it. I think, this being your first time seeing it, what are your reflections of it?
The only way I could see that being or a costume in general is if you'd have to have a very athletic person doing it. But even some of those jumps, the way it's effortless and with the height, the only way it could be a costume is if you had like arm extenders type of thing. Like, I don't know how you'd make it, but it would have to be an arm extender and probably leg extenders. But like, how much money do you think people are going to spend just for a prank? So that's the other point. It's like, right. I mean, I don't think people are going to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars just to make a YouTube prank.
Right. And I would agree with you. I think that this, as I stated before, this is the first time I saw this, I was like, whoa. That it just, a lot of this stuff, you can't be sure what you're looking at. And again, 99% of what you see online is fake. And it's a bunch of bunk. But this is one of those videos that immediately when I saw it, I was taken aback by it. Like, whoa. Like I just saw footage of something that, isn't normal. And much like I did with Patty and the Freeman footage as well. Paul Freeman is who I'm talking about. For those of you that may not be familiar, excuse me, look up the Freeman footage. It's some really great footage. And I'm sure once you see it, you'll be, oh, that's Freeman footage. Yeah. It's some great footage of this large Squatch walking by a very immature pine tree. And it's huge. It looks huge. And you be the judge, of course. Again, the scope of the show will never be to convince you of anything, but all I like to do is talk about the possibilities. And in my mind, that's a hell of a possibility, and you guys can be the judge what you think. But
ask you, Quest, the Freeman footage, is that the stereotypical footage everyone has pretty much seen and is famous?
A lot of people have seen it. It's not as famous as the Patterson-Gimlin, of course. That's the video of Patty crossing that creek bed with the profile, look. But the Freeman footage is done in Washington State, not too far actually from where I am. I think he was near the Spokane area, as I recall, but I might be absolutely wrong. But that's not far from here, and he caught some really good footage. In my opinion, it's nearly as good as Patty's, except the Patty footage was just really spectacular. The Freeman footage is really incredible, in my opinion. But again, you be the judge. And for any of you out there, I think. I know Thinker Thunker is doing a lot behind paywalls now, so it's hard to keep up with his work, but he's still got several of his videos of these, a lot of key videos that are out there where he's broken them down, and you should watch, at least if you only watch one, watch his breakdown of why the Patterson-Gimlin footage is not someone in a suit. And he talks about body proportions, and it's really important because you can fake a lot of things, but you can't fake where your elbow bends. And he brings up the thing about the arm extenders, and he's like, you can add arm extenders, but you can't change the position of where your elbow bends with arm extenders. And he talks about that as how it relates to the Patty film. He talks about the flexion of the knee. He talks about the proportions, how there's such a disparity between human proportions and more primate proportions like great apes, and how Patty is much closer to great ape proportions than human by a long shot. And so there's a lot to take in there, but at least it's an important takeaway, because I think a lot of people like, the Patterson-Gimlin footage has been debunked years ago. No, it really hasn't. It hasn't. There's many shows that have tried, and they've done reenactments and say, oh, that's it. But they don't show those breakdowns. They don't do side-by-side measurements showing the different proportions. Can somebody walk like Patty? They can walk similar to Patty, but I don't think they can repeat the body mechanics completely. And there's a footage of Bob Hieronymus, who is the guy that claimed he was in the Patty suit, walking and duplicating the walk he did in the Patterson-Gimlin footage. But if you watch the reenactment of it, they really don't focus on from his knees down. They keep it all above that. Well, the reason they don't focus on knees down is because Patty's flexion of her knees is nearly at a 90-degree angle, and Bob Hieronymus is a human flexion. Just a few degrees of flexion in order to clear a step. So I don't believe for a moment that was really him in there. I think it was an actual capture. And I've had the pleasure of talking with Bob Gimlin and sitting down and interviewing him, which is really one of the pinnacles of my experiences doing the Paranormal Portal. And had a great talk. We talked about that and so much more. And you can hear that interview on our podcast if you haven't caught it already. But that's over on all the major podcast players. You can find the Paranormal Portal podcast. And speaking of that, I'm going to be releasing our newest episode in just a little bit here. So keep watching for that. And that is an interview we did with Lon Strickler. That'll be coming out in just a while. So lots going on. But this is going to wrap up our show for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Monday and Tuesdays, obviously, we don't do live streams on YouTube. So, but be sure to come back Wednesday night and we'll have another episode all set up and waiting for you. So I hope you'll join us then. So Sheldon, anything in closing?
I always have something in closing. Let's see here. Well, if anybody new here wants to stay in touch with us or the Paranormal Portal community, they can join us in our Discord. The link right in the chat will lead you right to our Discord home base.
Absolutely. It sure will. And there's usually a good conversation going on over there. But definitely get involved over there and join up. We'd love to see you. We'd love to. But I think that's going to wrap up our journey tonight, folks. So from us to you, we love you, of course. Be good, be kind, be nice, take care of each other, help each other out. Find the magic in every day and remember to laugh as much as you can. Portal Mom, what is she saying? Thanks for the wonderful show. Good night, all. Good night, Brent and Sheldon. Love you both. Love you too, Mom. Thanks for being here. Sheldon loves you too. And I guess that's going to wrap it up for us. I don't know what's left, Sheldon. Roll the credits?
I guess so.
Roll the credits. Good night.